A Manhattan billionaire weds a small-town chef in a 48-hour, headline-grabbing ceremony. It's not love, it's vengeance. She's the daughter of the whistleblower who wrecked his family's empire. He wants a spectacle, she wants her sister's medical bills paid. But their revenge kiss lights up New York, and when an old crime crashes the wedding, the truth becomes the most dangerous guest of all. Before we begin, comment the city you're watching from and don't forget to rate the story. The veil itches like a lie. From the edge of the rooftop, Manhattan glitters hard as cut glass. A string quartet leaks a love song I'm not sure believes in love, and cameras tick like hungry clocks. Phones rise. Flashbulbs pop. Everyone waits for a fairy tale with blood at the hem. Everyone waits for Alexei Roman. He moves through people like a storm-claiming coastline. Inevitable, expensive, something you prepare for and pray away. 6'2". Tailored black. A jaw made for magazine covers, eyes the color of cold water, cufflinks worth more than my culinary school debt. He takes 12 unhurried steps down the aisle and my ribcage counts all 12. Olivia. His voice never asks. It collects. Ready? No one should be ready for a wedding like this. Not when you signed the contract 2 nights ago in a law office chilled to keep emotions from sweating through silk. Not when your sister's hospital bills stack like teetering towers in your head. Not when the groom didn't pick you for love, but for the press release. Yes, I say because survival doesn't wait for permission. He doesn't take my hand. He offers his arm. I take it. We turn toward an officiant with dental perfection and a microphone smile. The skyline leans closer. My dress, a borrowed cloud of white silk, whispers against my knees like it wants to run. Alexei tilts his head and studies my face as if it's a stock he's shorting. Up close I see it, a hairline crack in the billionaire marble. Something raw, almost human, flash burning and gone. Let's finish what we started, he murmurs without moving his mouth. What we started was a deal. What we started was a war. Dearly beloved, the officiant begins, and the beloved has absolutely nothing to do with it. I keep breathing in counts of 4. I keep my smile polite and my eyes soft and the knot in my stomach tied tight as a tourniquet. Somewhere behind the floral arch, my sister Emma's future waits with a clipboard. Money opens doors and Roman money blows them off their hinges. If I stand here, if I say the words, the clinic upstate will say yes. If I don't, I do not think about if I don't. The wind fingers my veil. The quartet swells. The city watches. Alexander Mikhail Roman, do you take? Yes. He slices the word in half. Cameras love the brutality. Olivia Jane Hale, do you? I do. I taste metal where the word scrapes my tongue. The officiant beams. By the power vested in me. Applause detonates early. Champagne laughter fans out like perfume. The rooftop seems to exhale, grateful to witness a myth reassert itself. The fallen Roman name repaired with a single glittering ring. I can feel the angle of every lens on my mouth, my shoulders, his hand. You may kiss the bride. We rehearsed this. In the law office, his counsel choreographed affection like a product launch. 3 seconds, the attorney droned. One hand to waist, one to cheek. Tilt for cameras left. She blinks. He looks protective. Think devotion, not desperation. We agreed. We promised each other the safety of pretense. Then his mouth finds mine and the choreography burns. Something like apology. The kiss is a contract in a language we never learned but somehow speak fluently. I'll lie for you if you lie for me. I'll pretend until pretend tastes real. The city hums against my teeth. 3 seconds stretch into 5. His hand is iron at my waist. My palm is a brand at his lapel. He breaks first. I exhale like I've been underwater. The rooftop door slams open. Alex. A single, razor-bright syllable slices the applause. Heads pivot. A woman in a crimson slip dress strides into the aisle with the satisfaction of a match about to touch gasoline. Champagne hair pinned careless perfect. Lips the exact color of trouble. A camera crew swarms behind her like a comet's tail. Congratulations, she purrs, stopping at the white-petaled edge of our aisle. On the wedding. And the perjury. His fingers on my waist turn to stone. Hello, Sarah. He latches each syllable like a lock. Seraphine Wilde. Venture darling. Exit queen. The one glossy magazine called The Woman Who Never Hears No, except, apparently, from Alexei Roman. I know her because you can't exist in New York without knowing her silhouette. I know her because 3 months ago, page 6 hinted she and Alexei whispered in the same shadowed booths, and I read it with a bitter laugh over microwave ramen. I know her now because she lifts a hand and the rooftop obeys, falling to a hush that smells like expensive panic. She swings an envelope out of her clutch. Why? The smug. The kind of envelope that ruins weekends and restores fortunes. You forgot something, darling, Sarah says, eyes glittering like paparazzi. A sworn statement. The word sworn hisses over the gardenias. The officiant's smile twitches. Our publicist, mine for 40 hours, his for a decade, takes one discreet step forward. Alexei doesn't blink. Not today, he says, and it's not a request. Oh, today exactly, she counters, warming to her performance. Today, with the pretty view and the prettier bride and all these lovely witnesses. Her gaze schemes my face, lingers on my mouth, and lands back on his. You perjured yourself before the SEC, and you did it to bury an old crime with a shiny new love story. A pap camera coughs light. The quartet falters to a tragic minor. Somewhere, an aunt I don't have clutches pearls I can't afford. I feel the click of every headline that will be written in the next 5 minutes. Alexei doesn't move his arm from my waist. The gesture is possessive, protective, calculated, maybe all three. Leave, he says softly. Sarah smiles with all her teeth. I could. Or I could read it. Her hand dips into the envelope. The world narrows to the crackle of paper. Alexei, I whisper, and I'm not sure if it's warning, plea, or a reminder that we are still on camera and my lipstick costs less than his tie clip. He glances down at me, and in the shard of a second between war and whatever comes after, I see a man instead of a weapon. It's disorienting, like finding a pulse in marble. Then it's gone. A trio of security in discreet black appears at the door. Too late, too careful. Sarah unfolds the page with the relish of a magician about to produce a dove and a lawsuit. This is a signed statement, she says, from a former Roman capital analyst. It alleges you knew about the offshore shell. A woman gasps. Men murmur. Journalists recalibrate their angles. And that your father didn't act alone. The rooftop goes very, very quiet. My father's name pulses behind my eyes like a bruise that never learned to heal. He was the whistleblower. He was the reason the Roman Empire cracked. He was the reason Alexei can't take his last name anywhere without 1,000 stories attached. And now this woman in blood-red silk is calling my father's ghost back to the party with a single, precise sentence. I sway. Alexei anchors me with a fraction more pressure. I hate that I notice. I hate that I need it. Stop, he says, voice low enough to frost glass. Make me, she breathes, delighted. Security advances. Sarah lifts the sheet higher, milking the last seconds of daylight, and begins to read names I thought were buried under years in non-disclosure agreements. An entire room holds its breath. And then the power cuts. The quartet dies mid-note. The fairy light canopy blinks to black. The skyline remains, stubborn and jeweled, but the rooftop drops into a velvet of sudden dark and startled shrieks. A half-beat later, emergency lanterns cough to life along the perimeter, flooding everything with a harsh, surgical glow. In the wash of it, I see three things at once. Sarah's triumphant face, startled into fury. The paper in her hand, snapped away by a gust like fate itself, has a nasty sense of humor. Alexei's expression, unarmored and lethal, locked on the exit we both know too well. He leans to my ear, voice a bullet without a gunshot. Stay with me. It isn't a question. He takes my hand, finally without choreography, and pulls me off the aisle, through a thicket of orchids and whispers, into the ribcage of the building where the lights still work and the air smells like richer people's secrets. Behind us, the rooftop erupts into a different kind of wedding, the one where truth shows up dressed as scandal and refuses to leave without cake. Where are we going? I manage, heels biting, heart sprinting. To fix what she broke, he says. What did she break? He doesn't slow. The narrative. I want to laugh. I want to scream. I want to tear the veil off and tell him I am not an episode he can reshoot if the test audience frowns. But the corridor opens to a private lounge and a wall of glass, and for a heartbeat we're alone in the reflection of everything we've just done. He turns to me. The emergency lights carve shadows into his face. For once there are no cameras. For once I don't know which version of me he's speaking to, the contract, the woman, or the weapon he planned to brandish. This is going to get ugly, he says. It already is. His mouth twitches. Then we do it together. You and me? I ask, stunned at how foolish it sounds and how much I want it to be a real sentence. You and me, he says, and somewhere back on the rooftop someone screams. We spin toward the sound, too late to unhear it. A body hits glass 2 floors below with a horrifying, expensive thud. The emergency lights stutter. And the story we rehearsed dies in the dark. The screams still clung to the air when silence followed, the kind that pressed against eardrums and made every breath sound guilty. My hand was still locked in Alexei's, my pulse stuttering against his palm. We turned toward the window wall together. Below, 2 floors down on the ledge of the neighboring terrace, a body sprawled at an unnatural angle. Crimson slip dress. Blonde hair shining under emergency lights. Seraphine Wilde. My stomach twisted. Oh my God. The rooftop above us erupted into chaos. Guests shouted, chairs scraped, champagne flutes shattered like startled birds. Paparazzi lenses snapped with renewed hunger. Grief wasn't just scandal, it was headline gold. She fell, I whispered. Alexei's jaw tightened, blue eyes fixed on the scene like a man reading his own execution. No, he said. She didn't fall. Security poured into the corridor behind us, radios crackling. The head of his detail leaned close. Sir, we need to contain this before NYPD gets here. Guests are panicking. Then calm them. His voice was ice cracking on steel. And no one talks until I say they talk. The guard nodded, disappearing into the storm. I pulled my hand free. She was alive 30 seconds ago, Alexei. She had a paper, something she wanted the world to hear, and now she's dead. That's not an accident. He finally looked at me sharp enough to cut. Which is why you need to keep quiet. What? You don't know this city. His words were low, fast, meant for me and no one else. You don't know how fast it will eat you alive. You married me 48 hours after walking into my office. That makes you the perfect headline. Revenge bride kills mistress. Do you understand? The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. You think they'll blame me? I know they will. And you? He stepped closer, heat and danger coiled in one. I'll burn the world before I let them. The lights above flickered again. Somewhere sirens wailed closer. And all I could think was, I hadn't even had time to figure out if my husband wanted to ruin me or protect me, before someone else died to prove how thin the line really was. The sirens arrived before the champagne stopped fizzing on the rooftop. Blue and red lights painted the glass walls, flashing like the heartbeat of a city that smelled blood. Mr. Roman, NYPD, a voice barked as 2 officers stormed into the corridor. Behind them, the chaos of the wedding thinned into hushes and phone cameras raised like weapons. Every guest wanted their angle, their exclusive, their viral moment. The taller officer, a woman with sharp eyes and sharper instincts, looked first at me. Not at Alexei, not at the billionaire everyone wanted to see in cuffs, but at me. The bride in white, trembling, veil crooked from a kiss that was never supposed to matter. Mrs. Roman? She asked. Her notebook was already out. We need your statement. Alexei stepped in front of me like a wall. She's not giving one. The officer arched a brow. That wasn't a question. I swallowed, throat dry. I saw her alive then. Alexei's hand tightened on mine, a warning disguised as comfort. Say nothing. Not here. Not now. The officer's pen hovered. Her partner had already peeled away, talking into his radio. You understand, she said slowly, that you're both witnesses to what looks like a homicide. Homicide. The word detonated between us. My chest caved in with the sound of 100 shutters clicking. The rooftop had become an open wound of whispers, speculation spilling faster than champagne ever had. The mistress. The bride. The billionaire. Every headline wrote itself in real time. Alexei finally spoke, his voice a low, lethal calm. Detective, my legal team is en route. Until then, my wife and I are not answering questions. Not without counsel. The detective studied him, then me. Your wife, she repeated, almost pitying. She looks like she didn't know what she was walking into. That stung because she was right. The officer stepped back, but not before one of them clipped a yellow evidence tag to the broken veil trailing across the floor. What? Proof I'd been here, proof I was part of whatever story they were about to build. When they left, Alexei turned to me, face taut. We leave. Now. I shook my head. If we run, it looks like guilt. His mouth curved, humorless, dangerous. Olivia, in this city, everything looks like guilt until you buy the opposite headline. Before I could answer, his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, and for the first time since I'd met him, I saw his composure fracture. Just a flicker, but enough. Who is it? I asked. He locked the phone. No one. What? The corridor was suddenly too small, the dress too heavy, the ring on my finger too tight. I'd married into revenge, into scandal, into a man whose truth was always one step behind his lies. And now, with Sarah's body on the glass below, I wasn't sure if I'd just become his shield. Or his next target. By morning, New York had eaten me alive. Every screen in Times Square replayed the same grainy clip. A rooftop kiss, a crimson dress, then chaos. Anchors leaned forward with the kind of hunger only tragedy could feed. Billionaire Roman's wedding ends in death. From bride to suspect? Who is Olivia Hale? My face was everywhere, cropped, zoomed, analyzed like evidence. The veil slipping from my hair. The shock in my eyes when Seraphine hit the glass. A freeze frame that made me look guilty before I even opened my mouth. Alexei stood at the penthouse window, jacket off, tie loose, the city buzzing below like a nest of hornets. His phone had been vibrating nonstop. Lawyers, investors, sharks who smelled blood in the water. He hadn't answered a single call. I sat curled on the leather sofa, clutching a mug of untouched coffee, staring at the headlines running in an endless loop across the TV. "They're calling me the revenge bride," I whispered. "They'd call you worse if they could spell it in bold," Alexei replied without turning. I wanted to scream. How could he be so calm? A woman was dead. I'd been married for less than 24 hours, and my life had become tabloid property. "Did you know?" I asked suddenly. My voice cracked in the hush. "Did you know she'd show up at the wedding with that paper?" His shoulders stiffened. That was all the answer I needed. "You knew." He turned then, slow, deliberate, eyes sharp as cut ice. "I suspected." "And you didn't tell me?" "Would it have changed your answer at the altar?" "Yes." The word tore out before I could catch it. "I would have run. I would have—" "Left your sister in that hospital bed?" he cut in. My throat closed. He'd found the vein, pressed down hard. "Don't," I whispered. He crossed the room, crouched until his face was level with mine. For the first time I saw exhaustion at the edges of him, something raw threading through the armor. "Sarah didn't just want to ruin me," he said quietly. "She wanted to reopen everything. Your father, my family, the case that nearly bankrupted half this city. If she had spoken that night, Olivia, both of us would be standing in handcuffs right now." I shook my head. "That doesn't explain why she's dead." Silence stretched. Long, heavy. Finally he said, "No. It doesn't." A knock shattered the quiet. Sure. Demanding. "Open up, NYD." A voice boomed through the door. My blood ran cold. Alexei didn't flinch. He just straightened, buttoned his shirt cuffs with steady hands, and glanced at me like a man already writing the script of our next scene. "Stay behind me," he murmured. And for the first time since the kiss that started this nightmare, I wasn't sure if he meant to protect me, or to use me as cover. They swept through the penthouse like weather, NYPD blues, crime scene yellow, the metallic scent of authority. The female detective from the rooftop introduced herself as Detective Isla Marquez, eyes steady, voice soft enough to sound kind, firm enough to be a cage. "Mrs. Roman," she said, gesturing to a seat at the Marble Island. "I'll record. You can stop any time to call counsel." Alexei stood between us and the window, a dark monolith against Manhattan's morning. Our lawyer, Lydia Cho, a symphony in slate gray, arrived with the hush of a storm door closing. "We'll answer limited questions," Lydia said. "Nothing speculative." Marquez clicked on a small recorder. "Time is 7:12 a.m. present. Detective Marquez, Detective Holder, Mrs. Olivia Roman, Mr. Alexei Roman, Counsel Lydia Cho." Her gaze found mine. "Mrs. Roman, where were you when Miss Seraphine Wilde fell?" I kept my hands folded, remembered Lydia's mantra. Short. True. Unafraid. "In a service corridor leading off the rooftop." "Alone?" "With my husband." "Did you see Ms. Wilde go over the ledge?" "No." "What was your last interaction with Ms. Wilde?" "She interrupted our ceremony, said she had a sworn statement." I swallowed. "She used the word perjury." Marquez nodded, unsurprised. "Did she show you the statement?" "No." "Did any of you touch her?" "No," Lydia cut in. "My clients will not opine on crowd proximity until we've reviewed video." Marquez's pencil hovered. "Crowd proximity isn't an opinion, counsel. It's a measurement. And we'll give you precise ones," Lydia said, "after we see the same footage you're about to cite." A small, humorless smile brushed Marquez's mouth. "You'll see it in due course." She pivoted to Alexei. "Mr. Roman, did you know Ms. Wilde intended to confront you?" "I suspected she might attend," he said, voice even. "Not that she'd hijacked the ceremony." "Because she was your ex?" He didn't blink. "Because she liked an audience." Marquez clicked the recorder off. The sudden quiet boomed. "Here's the thing," she said, tucking hair behind one ear. "If this is a simple fall, we all sleep tonight. But Ms. Wilde's nails show fibers, and a button popped off somebody's very expensive jacket on the ledge. That makes my morning complicated." Her eyes skimmed Alexei's suit, then mine. I fought the urge to look down to count buttons like sins. We've seized the rooftop feeds, she added. A section cut out around the moment your power went down. Cut out. Lydia's tone sharpened. By whom? Marquez didn't answer. We'll be in touch. They were gone as quickly as they'd come, leaving the apartment too quiet, the city too loud. Lydia turned on Alexei. You didn't tell me about a suspected interruption. I'm telling you now. She looked like she wanted to throw a statue at his head. Damage control begins in 30 minutes. Investors at 9. Board at noon. Olivia, you say nothing online. Don't touch your phone unless it's me. Do not search yourself. I won't, I lied. When the door closed behind her, I finally stood. Fibers. A button. Alexei. He stripped off his jacket, tossed it across a chair, and unfastened his cuffs with careful fingers. All buttons accounted for. The relief was so sharp it was almost obscene. I don't kill people, he said quietly. I didn't say you did. You wondered. I didn't argue. What mattered wasn't what I thought, but what 1,000 strangers would decide while stirring their coffee. My sister, I said. I need to see Emma. He nodded once. You'll have a car. No press. I'll follow after the investors call. Why not come with me now? Because I can't. Because the empire comes first. I heard it even if he didn't say it. I went to the bedroom, peeled off the wedding dress like a bad idea, and put on black jeans, a gray sweater, and the locket I hadn't let Emma see because I didn't want her to ask whose picture I'd stopped putting inside. By the door, Alexei reached past me, palm flat to the frame, caging me without touching. Olivia. I looked up. The narrative, he said, will try to swallow you. You hold your center, it can't digest you. I huffed a breath. Is that how you survived the last decade? He studied me for a beat that felt like forever. No. I survived by promising myself the next chapter would read better. I left before he could see that sentence land where my vow should have been. The clinic upstate smelled like lemon disinfectant and hope. Morning light spilled across linoleum, and somewhere a TV murmured soft cartoons meant to make complicated things feel less cruel. Emma was at the window, her pink hood up, the one with the fading Space Camp logo we'd thrifted and laughed over because neither of us had ever left the ground. The right side of her smile still lagged a half-inch behind the left, a souvenir from the stroke that didn't care we were too young for words like neurology and rehab schedule. Liv, she called, grabbing the walker and making it across the room in stubborn, brave steps. I met her halfway, the hug filling in all the places my morning had carved out. You look like a movie star, she said, pulling back to examine my ponytail like it was couture. A tired movie star. Flattering. I pinched her chin. How's my favorite astronaut? She clown-floated a little. They moved therapy to afternoons. You're stuck with me. Her eyes flicked past my shoulder. Where's your, she made a ring with thumb and forefinger. Husband. Work, I said and waited for the bitterness to exit my voice. It didn't. He'll come later. Emma didn't push. She never had to with me. I was a transparent book written in burnt sugar and sarcasm. She reached for my hand, thumb rubbing the pale circle where a different ring used to live. One Dad had saved for, one that had pawned when the word whistleblower turned into traitor on the lips of men who thought money absolved miracles they didn't deserve. I saw the news. Her voice went careful. Are you okay? I'm here. I shrugged, smiled too hard. And you're stuck with me. She nodded, chewing her lip. Did she fall? So small, those 3 words. So heavy. I don't know yet, I said. Emma considered, then patted the bed. Come sit. Let's watch people weld tiny things on YouTube until your brain stops doing backflips. I sat. We watched. Tiny sparks flew on tiny screens. The world shrank to a manageably cute size where nothing died and everything could be mended with the right heat. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Then another. Blocked. Then not really, a spammer with a sense of humor. I silenced them all. Then a text from Lydia. Media outside the clinic. Use east exit at noon. I glanced at the window. 2 vans idled by the curb, lenses glinting like curious beetles. Want a disguise? Emma whispered, conspiratorial, and tugged her hood over my head. You can be my assistant. Or my bodyguard. Bodyguard, I decided. I can glower. We laughed. And then my phone buzzed again, a vibration that crawled up bone. A new text. From a number saved years ago and never called again. Unknown, this is going to hurt to read. Don't hate me. I froze. Me, who is this? 3 dots. Then, Alec Kincaid. The best friend from my father's old office. The man who'd brought casseroles after the funeral and gone quiet when the depositions started to bleed. Alec, I'm sorry about the wedding. About the girl. Alec, I didn't know who else to tell. Alec, your dad wasn't the only one who blew the whistle. Alec, he tried to protect someone. He lied to protect someone. My throat closed. Me, who? A long pause. Alec. The word didn't make any sense until it took over the entire room. Me, what are you talking about? Alec, check the file. Sarah was waving. If it's the one I think it is, it says your father falsified dates to keep your name off an internal list. A Roman list. Alec, and if Sarah had read the rest, she would have outed a second signer on the offshore transfers. Alec, Alexei. The room tilted. Emma's hand found mine, her eyes big, steady. What is it? I swallowed the truth down like a shard. Nothing. Just noise. But my head was already running, breathless. If Dad lied to protect me from what? From whom? Why would Alexei's name be on the same line as my father's? The door cracked open. A nurse peered in. Miss Hale? There's a lady from the morning circuit. She says she booked an interview? Lydia's text buzzed again. Do not speak to media. East exit. No. I stood. No interviews. We're leaving in 20. Emma squeezed my fingers. I'm okay. I know. I curled a strand of hair behind her ear. I'm not. We made it to the east exit with a hoodie and a nurse as a decoy. The sun slapped me when I stepped outside, cameras turning like sunflowers. For 1 second I saw myself reflected in a press van. My face wary, my shoulders set, a girl who had burned sauces and learned to plate heartbreak so it looked like dessert. A voice cut through the din. Olivia. Did you push Seraphine Wild? Olivia. Did you marry him for money? Olivia. Did Alexei Roman kill his ex? My heart tumbled like dice. I kept walking. A microphone grazed my cheek. I swatted it away. Hands, too many hands, reached for the hood, for a quote, for a cry. The crowd swayed and suddenly I wasn't in a clinic driveway, I was in a tide. Then a black SUV curved in slow and mean like a punctuation mark no one wanted to argue with. The back door swung open. Alexei. Get in, he said. I got in. The door thudded closed, sealing us in a small, expensive silence that smelled faintly of cedar and a better life. The driver pulled away, media shrinking in the rear window like bad thoughts if you didn't feed them. How did you? I began. I wasn't letting them feed on you, he said. I stared out at the river. Alec texted me. His attention sharpened. Kincaid. You know him. A ghost from another war. I told him carefully what Alec had sent. The falsified dates. My father's protection. A second signer. His name. Alexei listened without interrupting, hands braced on his knees like the only way to stay seated was to hold himself to the leather. When I finished he looked very young and very old at once. My signature appears in a lot of places I didn't sign, he said at last. When a company wants to look legitimate, it borrows legitimacy. That sounds convenient. It's also true. Were you involved? If I'd been involved, Olivia, there would be no paper trail. The SUV slid into downtown traffic like a shark into warmer water. I tried to picture him younger, a 20-something with a family name like a loaded question, stampeding toward redemption or ruin. I tried to picture my father, shoulders hunched over paperwork, deleting my name from a list I hadn't known existed. What list was it? I asked. He didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was a different temperature. We ran a scholarship program through a Roman shell, clean money laundered to look heroic. It put a handful of kids through school. A handful, he repeated, bitter. Your name was proposed. I never received a dime. You wouldn't have. You were useful in a different way. I tore my gaze from the river. What way? He looked at me, really looked, and I felt it the way I felt storms before they hit. You were leverage. The SUV turned into a garage. Doors opened to a private elevator, more air that smelled like secrets. We rose in a glass box where the city unscrolled beneath us like a lie so beautiful people paid to believe it. You think my father used me as leverage? My voice came out too bright, breaking on the edges. Against who? Against us, he said. Against the Romans. For what? To force a deal we didn't take, he said simply. And to punish us for that sin by blowing the whistle on the parts of the machine he could reach. I laughed, a small disappointed sound. You really hate miracles. I hate the mythology that makes monsters look like saints. The elevator opened onto a different kind of quiet. Not the penthouse. A room I didn't know, Darker wood, lower ceilings, books that looked read and not curated. Not a showcase. A shelter. What is this place? I asked. The only room in Manhattan that belongs to me, he said. No board. No cameras. No ghosts. I'm here, I said. He didn't smile. Exactly. He poured water into 2 tumblers, slid one to me, then put a thick folder on the table between us. My father's name on the tab. L. Daniel. The paper smelled like an old storm. I wanted to hate you, he said, eyes on the folder. I wanted you to be simple. A pretty thing I could use to make my enemies bleed. You married me for revenge. Yes. He finally met my eyes. And in the last 24 hours, I have wanted to protect you more than I've wanted to protect my name. The confession landed with a dangerous softness. I hated that it warmed something cold. I hated that the warmth felt like the first honest thing in days. What do you want from me now? I asked. The truth, he said. Which part? All of it. I opened the folder. Photocopies. Depositions. Photos of my father at our battered kitchen table, a Roman junior analyst in the corner of a frame, a calendar on the wall flipped to a month that didn't match the file stamp. Dates. Falsified? Or simply convenient? We read in a silence that grew teeth. Halfway through, a key detail slid its knife between my ribs. An internal memo proposing community culinary grants administered through a Roman nonprofit to increase positive brand affinity in food deserts. A handwritten note in the margin. DH knows a candidate. I whispered. Daniel Hale. Alexei's jaw clenched. A grant with our name on it. Your restaurant as the feel-good press release. I never applied. I never knew. Because your father did, he said, voice low. And when the board declined, because real charity doesn't photograph as well as performative ribbon cuttings, he used what he knew to make the board pay. He turned a page. His mouth went flat. And whoever compiled Sarah's sworn statement was building to something worse. What? He hesitated. That your father didn't act alone. The memo said, Alexei. It said Mr. He tapped the initials scrawled beside 3 wire confirmations. It could be my name. It could be my father's. It could be someone using either of us to authorize dirt. The room tilted a degree. Enough to feel, not enough to explain. The door clicked. Lydia stepped in without waiting to be invited, phone tucked to her ear, eyebrows a neat line of no. We have a bigger problem, she said, ending the call. The SEC wants to reopen your father's file in light of the sworn statement. And Detective Marquez just pulled a search warrant for the wedding venue. They'll comb every inch. For what? I asked. For the missing page, Lydia said. Sarah's paper. Someone lost it. Someone else will find it. Alexei stood all storm again. Then we find it first. We went back to the scene like thieves returning to a house they once loved. The venue sat inert behind police tape, the rooftop shorn of fairy lights, flowers browning into a funeral arrangement the wind couldn't wait to scatter. Security let us in with a look that said they preferred the police. Lydia flashed a warrant of her own. Civil, not criminal, but paper is paper in New York. It eats doorways for breakfast. The service corridor had been tidied by necessity, not care. A cart of unused champagne coupes stood like a row of glass throats. A stack of chair sashes slumped like tired serpents. I scanned for white. Envelope white, paper white, lie white. The emergency lights hummed, anxious bees. Think like a story, Alexei said behind me. She waves the paper. The power cuts. Gus takes it. Which direction? West, I said, remembering the slap of wind against my veil. Toward the elevator bank. We followed the airflow through the corridor's spine until it grieved out into a maintenance nook that smelled like stale roses and tape residue. I got on my knees because kneeling felt like prayer and I needed all kinds. Fingers swept beneath a metal cabinet. Thus, a pen cap. A tiny screw. And then my knuckle brushed a corner. Got you, I breathed, pinching the edge and sliding paper into air. 1 page. Not an envelope. Crumpled, water stained along the top where the roof had whispered rain overnight. Affidavit at the header. A notary seal. A signature block with a name that made my vision salt. Not Sarah's. Not Alex. Marina Hale. My mother. The room narrowed to a hallway of sound. I read without breathing. I, Marina Hale, being duly sworn, depose and say. In 2017, Daniel Hale confided to me that he had falsified the internal submission date for an application to the Roman Community Culinary Initiative to exclude our daughter, Olivia Hale, from a review list titled Roman Partners. He stated that said list included names of vendors, nonprofit beneficiaries, and companions whose optics benefited Roman capital. He further stated that a Roman executive, initials AMR, approved the creation of off-balance entities to route designated payments, including but not limited to publicity costs, special events and personal travel, to keep people grateful. Daniel Hale told me he intended to force a correction after the board declined Olivia's candidacy, and that he would use whatever leverage it took. Bile rose. Companions. Keep people grateful. My father's words, my mother's signature. A notary seal that didn't care whose truth it validated. My hand shook. The last paragraph blurred. On the week of April 12, 2018, Daniel Hale returned home with a folder stamped Roman. He told me, if they won't feed us, I'll feed the story. He asked me to hold an envelope in our safe deposit box, in case something happens. The final line, a date. 2 weeks before Dad died. I stared at my mother's name as if it might apologize. My mother, who'd left when I was 19, who sent postcards with Paris and sorry in the same looping hand, who had called twice in the last year to ask if I'd forgiven anything yet. Footsteps. Lydia. Alexei. The door a drum of approaching consequence. I slid the page beneath my sweater, inside the band of my jeans, paper cold against skin. They appeared in the doorway. Lydia's gaze skated the room, cataloging. Alexei's found me and never left. What did you find? He asked. Nothing, I lied. He took one step, then another, until the space between us was a breath I couldn't catch. He put a finger under my chin and raised my eyes to his with ruthless gentleness. Don't lie to me, he said. I'm not. You are. His voice dropped. And you're terrible at it. I pressed my lips together so I wouldn't confess, wouldn't give him a weapon or a lifeline. I didn't know which it would become. Lydia's phone chirped. Detective Marquez is en route with a forensics team. She looked at us like we were two children in a pantry with chocolate on our faces. Whatever you're hiding, decide if it saves you or sinks you by the time she climbs those stairs. Alexei exhaled, a low volcanic thing. We can't outrun this with half-truths. You want truth. I hissed, heat rising with the panic. My mother wrote the affidavit. He stilled. And she says my father protected me by lying. That you or your father authorized the accounts that greased your mythology. He flinched. It was small. It was everything. Let me see it, he said. What? So you can decide which parts survive daylight. So I can decide which parts try to kill you, he said, and I believed him against my better judgment. That was the danger of a man like him. Sincerity framed like a confession and delivered like a vow. Footsteps echoed closer. Marquez's voice, orders crisp, the scrape of equipment boxes. I pulled the page free. His eyes flicked to the notary seal, to my mother's name, to the initials. He read fast, the way men do when fire is already licking the doorframe. When he reached the end, he said nothing for a heartbeat too long. Is it true? I asked, voice thin. Parts, he said. But the most important line isn't on this page. What line? Who told your mother to write it? A shadow fell across the threshold. Detective Marquez filled the doorway, two techs at her shoulders, curiosity neat and sharp. Find anything? She asked and looked right at my hands. I tucked the page behind me. We were just leaving. Marquez's eyes warmed by 1 degree, the temperature of a cat noticing a can opener. Then you won't mind if we search you on the way out. Lydia appeared between us like a spell. You'll do no such thing without a new warrant. My clients are cooperating, not consenting to personal searches. Marquez's smile did not reach her eyes. You're very good at drawing lines, Miss Cho. Here's mine. If I learn one more person kept a piece of last night from me, I stop treating this like a celebrity tragedy and start treating it like a conspiracy. She stepped aside. Go on. We went. In the elevator, Alexei didn't look at me. He watched the floor numbers ascend as if they were an argument he could win by glaring. For the record, he said, I didn't tell your mother to write that. For the record, I said, clutching the affidavit under my sweater, I don't know who to believe. That's fair, he said softly. Believe the evidence we find together. Together, I repeated as if the word were a raft. The elevator chimed. The doors slid open onto the gray afternoon. A man in a street coat stepped from a column shadow and raised his phone. He didn't record. He showed me the screen. A photo of my father. A text beneath it, he died for this. Don't waste it. Then the man turned and vanished into the wind. I couldn't breathe in any way that felt useful. Back in the shelter room with the books, I paced while Lydia built legal fences and Alexei stood very still, the posture of someone listening for a sound only he could hear. What does Roman partners mean? I asked, waving the affidavit like a live wire. Who qualifies as a companion? Why was my name on any list you had at all? Alexei's answer came slow, as if each word had to pay admission. When a company like ours sponsors charity, galas, grants, there's a shadow guest list. People we invite, promote, protect. We call them partners so no one has to call them what they might be. Mistresses. Sometimes chefs who uplift food deserts and make excellent photographs with a billionaire board chair. Me. Yes, he said simply. A silence settled, heavy and brittle. Then he continued, voice roughened with something like shame. I was 29 when I tried to turn Roman capital good by buying its reflection. I put my name on things we didn't earn. I hired PR saints to launder greed into generosity. I told myself results matter more than purity. I told myself the list didn't hurt anyone. It hurt my father. It hurt a lot of fathers, he said, and the honesty sliced something clean in me. Lydia looked up from her phone. We have a clock. The SEC will subpoena the bank where your mother kept that envelope. If there's more, it won't remain a ghost. There's more, I said, because of course there was. There always is when paper meets blood. Alexei's gaze found mine. We need your mother. She's in Paris, I said automatically, then corrected myself. Or she was. We don't talk. Lydia was already dialing. Send me her last number. I'll do it. I stared at the window until the city blurred. A whistle blew somewhere far below, the whole world pretending to be ordinary. My phone buzzed again. Alec, you found something, didn't you? Me, my mother's affidavit. Alec, they'll spin it. That's what they do. If you want truth, meet me where you used to buy empanadas before your shift. 5 p.m. Come alone. I looked at Alexei. Alec wants to meet. Then he's either our oxygen or a match. Alexei checked his watch. You won't go alone. Alec insisted. A muscle flicked in his jaw. Insist back. I'm not your asset, I said. He didn't blink. You're my wife. The word filled the room. Not legal. Not performative. A tether, dangerous and necessary. Lydia ended a call. No answer for your mother, she said. I left messages and a trapdoor email. If she's reachable, she'll surface. Trapdoor? An inbox only people I've warned know how to open. Old trick. She pocketed her phone. Meanwhile, I agree with Alexei. You don't meet Alec alone. I folded, not from obedience but from fatigue. Fine. Alexei waits outside. I go in first. We settled on the plan like people who knew plans kept panic quiet. I changed into a blue dress that made me look like I remembered how to sleep, tied my hair back, and slid the affidavit into the lining of my bag. The locket sat warm at my throat, the metal touching pulse. On the street, late afternoon made a gold spill of everything. The empanada stand still leaned like a tired man against the corner of 46th and hopes we once had. I walked up alone. Alexei hung back where I could feel him, the way you feel a storm humidity before the thunder speaks. Alec Kincaid looked older, softer at the edges, the kind of man who'd traded ambition for comfort and hated himself in the mirror for liking it. He smiled, chastened. Olivia, he said. You look like your mother. People say that when they want me to forgive them, I replied. He flinched. I deserve that. We stood like that, the smell of fried dough wrapping us in a nostalgia that didn't earn the name. Why now? I asked. Why not 5 years ago when my father died and my life swallowed itself? Because I was a coward, he said with brutal self-awareness. Because I thought if I stayed very still the wolves would forget I exist. They don't. They count the still ones at night. And today a woman fell out of the sky holding a piece of paper I thought I'd buried under 37 signatures. He rubbed his face. I warned her not to read it on camera. She said that was the point. My skin pebbled. Did you send her? I sent her the notary contact. That's all. Truth or lie. It felt like 50-50 and the coin hadn't landed. What do you know? I pushed. That your father tried to blackmail the Romans into funding your restaurant. When he didn't, Alec tilted his chin in the direction Alexei lurked. Daniel decided to burn the stage. My father wasn't a blackmailer. He was a father, Alec said softly. Same thing depending on the wind. He looked at my bag like he could see through leather. You have a page. There's more. The envelope Marina mentions? It's at First New York Savings, Midtown Branch, Safe Deposit J17. She gave me a duplicate key when she left Daniel because she didn't trust him not to look. My heart tripped. Why tell me? Because if I tell Alexei, he'll beat me there. Alec's voice gentled. And because your father and I, before all this, we made empanada runs and talked about daughters like they were comets we were lucky to see. Something cracked open in my chest. A memory collided with it. Dad laughing with a mouthful of flaky crust, swearing that one day he'd steal the recipe and I'd use it to buy us a house. Thank you, I said, meaning it. Footsteps behind me. The air changed. A presence I could map without looking. Alex's eyes flicked over my shoulder, cooled. Roman. Kincaid. Alexei's voice was stone with manners. Say goodbye. Alec lifted his palms, a man showing he'd already dropped the weapon. You always did hate people who knew how the trick worked. No, Alexei said evenly. I hate magicians who pretend it's not a trick. He stepped close to me. The city dimmed around the focus of him. We're leaving. Alec's parting shot floated after us like confetti with teeth. Careful, Olivia. Romans don't rescue people. They repurpose them. I didn't look back. In the car, I handed Alexei the key number with a defiance that felt like trust wearing a mask. J17. First New York Savings. We go now. He didn't argue. He told the driver to move. First New York Savings looked like a church that never believed in redemption. Granite columns, brass doors, a lobby hush that made every step feel guilty. Lydia split off to warm up, the branch manager. We were ushered into the private vault corridor where silence had a salary and the air smelled faintly of ink and secrets. J17, the attendant said, slotting a key and turning it with reverent boredom. You'll need your key as well. I handed over the small brass blade Alec had given me in a life that was still an hour old. The lock surrendered with a softened thunk. The attendant rolled a slender gray drawer onto the velvet table and left us with the kind of discretion that hears everything and reports nothing. Alexei didn't touch the box. He watched me, hands in pockets, the way a man watches a detonator he'd rather not press. Open it. I lifted the lid. Inside, a thick craft envelope sealed with a strip of blue tape, a smaller white one with my name printed in my mother's looping hand, a cardstock hotel key, and a cheap USB drive the color of regret. The blue-taped envelope was heavier than it looked. I cracked the seal and slid out what felt like a small family of paper. Photocopied wire confirmations, black and white photos of gala back rooms no one was supposed to photograph, a spreadsheet titled Roman Partners, Optics Management, and a single-page addendum listing disbursements, hospitality private. Initials annotated many lines. MR appeared in 3 places like a watermark unable to keep its distance. The photos were worse. My father leaving a side door of a Roman-sponsored fundraiser, head down, a folder under his coat. A Roman executive, face obscured by motion blur, passing him something that looked like a badge. In one frame, my mother in the background, young and furious, her mouth captured mid-word. I opened the white envelope with my name. Liv. If you are reading this, I failed at something I promised you, someday meant to be. Your father loved you in a way that made him reckless. He thought he could feed the beast and keep you clean. When the board denied what he wanted for you, he turned the truth into a lever. I warned him. He wouldn't listen. If the Romans come for you, show them the truth. If the truth comes for you, show it the Romans. The key is for room 1608 at the Gresham. Do not go alone. The Gresham, I said, flipping the key in my palm until it flashed a guilty little smile. Why would she? A siren bled faintly through the vault door. Not police, alarm. The attendant's voice came muffled. Apologies, a brief security test. Alexei's head snapped toward the corridor. His phone buzzed. A single text from an unknown number. Leave the vault. Walk to the northwest stairwell. Alone. Bring the box. He showed me eyes flat. Trap. Or a friend. I don't have those. Then it's mine, I said, thinking of the man outside the elevator with my father's photo. He died for this. Don't waste it. Alexei's gaze slid to the USB. We copy that, then burn the keycard trail. Burn? Metaphorically, he said, already sliding the USB into a slim silver laptop he pulled from the inner pocket of his coat like a magician who hates applause. If this carries malware, it'll eat a sandbox, not my machine. A small folder popped open. /Roman_Optics_2017-2019/. Inside, subfolders labeled Memkins, Wireproof, PR_scripts, guest lists, and a file named AMR_8_over.csv. My stomach dipped. Open that. He did. Names. Amounts. Notes. Keep grateful. Keep quiet. Keep close. A line halfway down stopped both of us. Hail Olivia, culinary halo, pilot, $0 dispersed, status. Leverage/optics only AMR. It felt like being punched by a ghost. A second file, memkin_041218.txt, was a transcript of a meeting. If you won't fund her, I go to the press. Amar, you'll do what you must. I'll take you with me. Amar, then we fall together. Alexei's jaw ticked. My father. Your initials. He nodded once. That too. The corridor's hum sharpened, the sound of purposeful feet. Lydia's text pinged. 2 plainclothes just entered the vault lobby. We're fine but not alone. Alexei snapped the laptop closed, slid the USB into a foil sleeve he'd produced like a man who never left home without worst-case scenarios, and tucked it against the inner lining of my bag. We're keeping the originals, I said, laying my hand over the papers as footsteps neared. We're keeping our lives, he corrected. Move. We left the box half full, the lid askew, the blue tape ripped in a way that looked like hurry. In the corridor, a man with a haircut that cost a paycheck held a leather folio and didn't make eye contact. Another stood too casually by the elevator, mouth saying nice day, posture saying don't test me. Alexei guided me to the northwest stairwell, where the cement swallowed sound and the red-painted pipes sweated like it was summer already. On the third landing, a woman in a taupe coat waited, familiar tilt of jaw, hair braided back, eyes that counted angles. Detective Marquez. Going somewhere? She asked mildly. We're exercising, Alexei said. Aha. She tipped her chin to my tote. What did the box gift you, Mrs. Roman? I forced a shrug I didn't believe. Letters. A USB. My mother's. My throat betrayed me. Marquez's gaze gentled. Your mother's what? Instructions, I finished too late. Good. Marquez's voice stayed kind, which made it infinitely worse. Then you'll follow one more. Don't run from me. I'm not the storm you're trying to outrun. Alexei stepped half in front of me, and the look Marquez gave him was almost sympathetic. You, Mr. Roman, are the weather. She let us pass. No handcuffs. No demand. Just a warning that felt like a thread tied around my ribs, tugging whenever I moved too fast. Outside, the light had turned the color of old brass. I clutched my bag like a buoy. The Gresham, I said. He nodded. The Gresham. And after? After, he said, we decide which story kills us slower. Room 1608 at the Gresham smelled like citrus cleaner and a memory someone else made. The curtains were drawn. The city's pulse filtered through a thick weave that turned Manhattan into ocean. On the table, a black phone no hotel used anymore and a note beneath the receiver in my mother's hand. Pick up. Don't speak first. I lifted the handset. The line was already live. A breath hissed softly like distance itself had lungs. Liv. My mother's voice, the one that used to sing to grocery lists. Mom? A beat. I shouldn't have sent you to the vault. You did, I said. And you left me a map to a room where you're not. I can't be, she said, regret wrapped in wire. You have something that can help you. But it will also hurt you if you hand it to the wrong mouth. Who is the right mouth? I asked. Not the Roman boy, she said too quickly. He's not a boy. No, she said softly. He never got to be. The door clicked. Lydia slipped inside, held up a finger. Someone followed us. Alexei crossed to the peephole, all muscles turned to listening. Mom, I said, lowering my voice, Marquez is circling. She was at the bank. Good, my mother said. She's the only one who tried to comfort me at the courthouse. You met her? Everyone meets everyone when truth is a party. Did you write the affidavit? Silence, then. I wrote what I knew and what I suspected. Those are not the same. What do you know? That Daniel loved you, she said, and the old ache spilled down my spine like cold. And that men like Alexei's father turn love into a tool when it suits the angle. And Sarah? Sarah played with matches, Mom said. Someone moved the kerosene. The line crackled. Faraway voices, the scrape of a chair. Liv, I have to go. No. Don't. If you choose the detective, do it all the way. If you choose Alexei, don't flinch. Either way, choose. Wavering gets people killed. A breath. I'm sorry I left. I'm sorrier for what I left you with. The line went dead. I stared at the phone as if the right stare could reverse time. Lydia's own phone buzzed. She read, exhaled through her nose. Detective Marquez is in the lobby and politely requesting a chat. She asked, not ordered? Alexei said. For now. He looked at me. You decide. The most dangerous gift he could hand me. I hadn't survived the last 2 days to become someone else's witness doll. And yet, the detective with the soft voice and the sharp eyes had felt like a rope in all this water. "Bring her up," I said. Marquez knocked 5 minutes later. She entered like a woman used to rooms rearranging themselves for her and sat without being invited. "I'll be plain," she said. "I'm asking for the page you took from the venue. If I have it, I can try to protect you from the worst angles of what's coming." "What's coming?" I asked. Her mouth tightened. "A warrant to seize your devices. A boardroom coup attempted in public. A media war only one of you can afford. And a shift, Mrs. Roman, where you're no longer a bride, we start calling you a co-conspirator." Alexei didn't blink. "Based on fibers under Seraphine Wild's nails, a missing chunk of rooftop footage, and a timeline that puts you two in the only blind spot that matters." "We didn't touch her," I said. "I believe you," she replied. "Which is why I'm here and not downstairs collecting your phones with a smile." Lydia interjected carefully. "Detective, you're asking my clients to hand over evidence without a subpoena." "I'm asking them to pick a side of the truth before someone shapes it for them," Marquez said. Then, gently to me, "If you give me that page, I can start building a case that your father's actions complicate motive. I can also shield your sister from the circus I can already hear warming up." Emma. The word hit like oxygen and fire. I opened my bag. Alexei's gaze sharpened. Lydia's brows rose 1 millimeter. I set the affidavit on the table between us. Marquez didn't touch it. "Can I read?" "Yes," I said. She read fast, the way people do when they've learned news from the dead before. When she finished, she looked at Alexei. "Your father's initials." "Or mine," he said. She shook her head. "This smells like the old man. You, Mr. Roman, are many things. Subtle isn't one." "Detective," Lydia said lightly, "if you're going to flatter my client, do it on the record." Marquez slid the page into a clear sleeve as if it might bite. "I can't promise you safety," she told me. "But I can promise I won't throw you to wolves to see what you're made of." "Thank you," I said and meant it. She stood. "One more thing. Seraphine's fingernails picked up fibers from a silk blend Roman tuxedo manufactured 5 years ago. Your groom wore wool." "She means me," Alexei said dryly. "I didn't own a tux 5 years ago." Marquez nodded once. "But your father did." The door closed behind her, and the room bent under the weight of a name we hadn't invited but couldn't keep out. We took the service stairs to avoid the elevators and the inevitable camera trap. Halfway down, the fire alarm hiccuped once, just enough to make the fluorescent lights jump and the metal rails hum. I stopped, fingers clamped on the rail, breath snagged where ribs turned to prayer. The last 48 hours telescoped. A kiss turned weapon, a body on glass, a page with my mother's name, my father turned leverage, my sister waiting for a future we were trying to barter into being. Olivia. Alexei stood a step below, looking up like faith was a thing he'd mislaid and found by accident. "Look at me. I am. Not like a headline," he said. "Like a person." The stairwell smelled like dust and old smoke. Somewhere a door banged, voices blurred, the world went on with or without us. I pressed my palm to the cold cinder block to prove I still existed. "You married me to ruin me," I said. "And then you started trying to save me. Which part is the lie?" His answer came without hesitation. "The first part was the plan. The second part is the fact. That's not how facts work." "It is now." He climbed one step, now level with me. "I can't rewrite what my father did. I can't carry your father out of the choices he made. All I have is the line between us, right this second, and whether I tell the truth across it." "What truth?" "That I would rather burn what's left of Roman than watch this city EQ," he said, and the stairwell tilting had nothing to do with gravity. "Fear is a wind that does two things. It scatters and it clarifies. The scattering had dragged me through the last 2 days. The clarifying swept through now." "Don't kiss me if it's strategy," I said. He didn't move. "Don't kiss me if it's mercy." The lights hummed. A door clanged below. I could taste copper in the back of my mouth like a memory of yes. My hand slid from the wall to his shirt front of its own accord, fingers curling into a fabric that didn't belong to either of us and also somehow did. When our mouths met, nothing performed. No angles. No choreography. Just a collision, salt and fear and something that felt like forgiveness trying to learn to speak. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't polite. It was a relief valve hissing open before the boiler blew. He braced a hand at the back of my neck. I fisted my hand in his lapel to remind him I wasn't being carried anywhere I didn't choose. We broke at the same time as if the stairwell itself had pulled us to air. His forehead rested against mine. Okay, he said, a word that tasted like vow. Now we go finish a story someone else tried to write. I swallowed, voice a rasp. And if the ending is awful? Then we write a better epilogue. We moved again, shoulders almost touching, a current between us threading through the metal and the concrete and the noise below. At the landing I slid my wedding ring off, stared at it, then slid it back on. Practice? Alexei asked, mouth hitching at one corner. Choice, I said, and the smile that found me didn't feel like someone else's. We stepped into the service hall, and nearly into the path of a woman with a catering cart who did not belong on this floor. She looked up, startled, then shoved the cart hard enough that the lid rattled. Housekeeping, she blurted. Sure you are, Alexei said, catching the cart with one hand. He flipped the lid. Inside, no linens. Just a rectangular black case with a keypad and a neat slit where a slim object could be fed like communion. The woman bolted. Alexei didn't chase. He pulled me back as two men in maintenance uniforms turned the corner at an unfortunate run. We ran the other way, the cart rattling behind us like an accusation. In the loading bay, sunlight crashed through a high window. A door yawned to the alley. We shoved the cart through, heels skidding, hearts in our mouths. In the alley's blessed stink, he punched a code he didn't have into the case. It beeped in patient denial. What is it? I demanded. A drop box, he said. You feed it evidence and it swallows it for whoever paid for the slot. He looked at my bag. I looked at the slit. Then I understood. This wasn't meant for us. It was meant for the page we had just handed to Marquez. The case eyes us, mouth ready. We keep moving, he said. And we don't miss. For what? The board, he said. And the noose they're knitting. The Roman boardroom was designed to make men feel large. Table long as a runway, glass walls that turned the skyline into applause, a chandelier like crystal rain paused mid-fall. Seated at the head, Victor Roman, Alexei's uncle, cheeks florid with patience. Beside him, Amelia Voss, CFO, immaculate and unamused. Alexander, Victor said, not standing. We are deeply saddened by the tragedy at your celebration. My wedding, Alexei said, taking the seat halfway down the table, a deliberate desecration of hierarchy. Lydia sat to his right. I took the chair to his left so no one could excise me with a shrug. Victor steepled fingers. Unfortunately, markets are not sentimental. Since last night, we've lost $2 billion in value. Amelia? The CFO slid a deck onto the screen. Numbers bled red. Headlines bloomed like a rash. A feed in the lower corner scrolled with comments that read like prophecy and poison. To stabilize, Amelia said, investors require a visible sacrifice. A public mea culpa. Preferably accompanied by a leadership transition, temporary of course. Victor smiled, grandfatherly. Step aside for 90 days. Let the storm pass. We'll tell the street you're focused on your personal life. His eyes swung to me, friendly as a blade. Your new responsibilities. Alexei relaxed back, loose as a loaded spring. You'd like my resignation. We'd like continuity, Amelia said. You are currently a liability. Unlike optics shells and bribery slush, Alexei said pleasantly. Those are assets, correct? Amelia's nostrils flared. Victor's mouth barely moved. Mind your tone. Mind your history, Alexei returned. Lydia slid a sheet across to Amelia. We have reason to believe the SEC will revisit a series of accounts initiated during Victor's interim tenure in 2017. That is baseless, Amelia said. That is discoverable, Lydia countered. The room's temperature dropped a degree. Victor's smile thinned. Alexander, be sensible. Appear contrite, step aside, and this can be contained. The public wants a throat. Give it yours for a season and keep your head. I leaned in before Alexei could play martyr. Here's another option. 6 pairs of eyebrows lifted as if I'd licked the chandelier. Say your piece, Victor said, indulgent. Double the community grants without Roman branding, I said, heart drum loud. Fund the programs the board rejected, the ones that actually fix something. Don't put your names on the ribbon. Do it quietly, transparently, with third-party audits and zero galas. And appoint an external compliance czar with subpoena power. Amelia blinked. You think buying piety? Buying silence didn't work, I said. Try buying decency. Victor chuckled. Spoken like a child of idealists. Spoken like a woman who can read a room, I said. If you force Alexei out now, the market reads blood and asks whose knife to sharpen next. If you throw real money at real need without photos, the street sees a longer play. And the public has fewer reasons to celebrate your downfall. Silence took the head seat. Alexei didn't look at me, but I felt his attention like a hand along the spine. Lydia coughed delicately. We'll circulate a draft plan for an extraordinary board session tonight. Meanwhile, any motion to remove Mr. Roman today fails for lack of notice. Victor's gaze cooled. We will see if notice can be manufactured. By all means, Lydia said, smiling. I love a procedural fight. We adjourned into a hallway that smelled faintly of cologne and old decisions. Alexei stopped just outside the door, braced one hand against the wall, and laughed once, quietly in disbelief, like a man watching a hurricane spare a house on accident. Don't get used to storms listening, he said. I won't, I said, smiling back because the hallway had been too long and the day too sharp not to. He sobered. You were exceptional. Don't repurpose me, I said automatically, then wished the words back because his face registered the hit like a bruise finding new color. I'm trying not to, he said. Try harder, I answered. We were 10 feet from the elevator when Amelia Voss appeared in our path. Mrs. Roman, she said with the kind of professional sweetness that rots teeth, a word. Alexei angled to block. I stepped around him. If you're here to warn me about wolves, I said, I've met them. Amelia's eyes cut like polished glass. I'm here to tell you your mother was on our payroll for 3 months in 2018. Consulting. Anonymous. The floor lurched. You're lying. She invoiced a shell, Amelia said, handing me a copy. My mother's signature toured the bottom like a decision she'd make again. Ask her what she bought with it. She left me with the paper and a crater where certainty should have been. Alexei's hand hovered near my back, not touching. You okay? No, I said. Good, he said. Only liars are fine right now. We didn't trust the cloud. We trusted a room in the shelter place with a laptop no one sane would use and a phone in a Faraday sleeve. Alexei slid the USB from the foil, jacked it in, and let the files open their small mouths and sing. The memkins were worse than the transcripts. They were recordings. Voices muffled by table edges, laughter cut off by doors. MR sounded like a man practicing being God and settling for governor. I knew the voice even without the initials. I'd heard it on Bloomberg once, feeling nothing but generic annoyance at Privilege's cadence. Your father? I said. Alexei nodded, jaw locked till tendons looked like wire. He scrubbed through until an April 2018 file hissed into audio. MR, we'll route through Heron Maritime. Unknown male, the optics fund? MR, the optics are the fund. Keep the chef on the list even if we don't pay it. Young women are currency. Unknown, Daniel Hale is prickly. MR, prick him. I flinched. Alexei closed his eyes for a second that might have been a prayer or an autopsy. Play another, I said, voice a wire pulled tight. He did. Another April night, glass clinks, papers sift, an elevator bell. My father, you'll give me what you promised. MR, I promised nothing. Ditch, you promised a future for my daughter. MR, I promised a future for Roman. Don't confuse your church with my God. The file ended in the scrape of a chair. No crash. No threat. Just a silence that felt like a decision being made somewhere none of us could see. Alexei clicked the last file, AMR_V_Marina_0416.mp3. My mother's voice jumped out of the tinny speakers like she'd been waiting in the wire. You think you can salt the earth and call it a garden. MR, I think you liked the flowers when they were delivered to your door. I like not being afraid. MR, then choose better company. The scrape of a lighter. A door. A sigh. That's enough, I said, and he shut the lid like mercy. We sat in the dark the quiet full of a dozen roads we couldn't take. Alexei spoke first. He did this. Your father. Yes. And mine. Pushed the lever he could reach, he said, staring at his hands. And when the fulcrum didn't move, he pulled harder. And Sarah? He shook his head. Either she thought she could surf this and drowned, or someone decided the tide would be more useful if it went red. A knock, soft, precise. Lydia. She entered with a face that said she'd aged an hour per minute. 2 things, she said. 1. Marquez confirmed preliminary talks on Sarah. Benzodiazepines in her system, moderate. Drunk? No. Dosed? Maybe. 2. A subpoena for your devices is on my desk. We have 6 hours. We need to choose a battlefield, Alexei said. Lydia nodded. If we go to the SEC first with a curated packet, your father's voice, the slush accounts, we get to frame greed as ancient, you as reforming. If we go to Marquez first, we frame homicide. Both paths will chew you, she added to me. One tries not to swallow your sister. Emma. Always Emma. The compass that kept true in a city that sold north by the pound. What would you do, I asked, if it were your family? Lydia's answer was simple. I'd walk the evidence into Marquez's hands myself and ask for a wall around my sister. She didn't blink. And then I'd burn the Romans in public view. She looked at Alexei when she said it. He didn't disagree. He just looked at me. We go to Marquez, I said. Together, he said. Together, I repeated, each syllable a step I couldn't unwalk. He stood. I stood. Lydia slid the USB into a second sleeve, the affidavit into a hard folder, my mother's hotel note into a zip pocket. As we reached the door, Alexei touched my wrist. One more truth before we walk into a room where truths are currency. What? I didn't mean to love you, he said. I meant to use you and survive it. My laugh came out wet and unpracticed. I didn't mean to love you either. We didn't kiss. Not then. There are moments for mouths and moments for spines. We chose the second and stepped into the hall like it might eat us, but we'd taste bad. The elevator pinged, doors sliding open onto a mirror that held two strangers and a storm. Somewhere in the building, a TV spooled headlines that would rename us every hour. Somewhere in the city, my mother counted her own ghosts. Somewhere in a cold drawer, Sarah waited for a story she couldn't finish. When the doors closed, our reflections remained, two people the world was about to learn down to bone. Ready? He asked. No, I said. Let's go. Detective Marquez cleared her desk with a sweep of her arm. Coffee cup, case files, photos, gone to the floor. Only space remained, and the silence of a woman who knew she had just been handed a loaded weapon. Lydia set the folder down. Alexei placed the USB beside it. My hands shook, so I held them together like prayer. Play it, Marquez said. The recordings filled the room. My father's voice. Alexei's father's voice. My mother's. All three twisted into knots of leverage, compromise, and promises that smelled of gasoline. When the last clip ended, Marquez leaned back, eyes closed, lips pressed together like she'd tasted something bitter but familiar. Do you know what this is? She asked softly. Evidence, I said. No, she opened her eyes. This is a war declaration. Lydia folded her arms. We're not here to declare. We're here to survive. Marquez studied Alexei. You'll be the headline. Your father's sins with your initials. Your wedding, your bride, your scandal. They'll devour you first. I expected nothing less, Alexei said. And you? Marquez's gaze cut to me. You're the daughter of a whistleblower. Which makes you either the perfect witness, or the perfect scapegoat. My throat tightened. Which do you think I am? That depends, Marquez said. On whether you can live with the truth when I tell it. Before I could answer, her phone buzzed. She glanced, cursed, then shoved it into her pocket. What? Lydia demanded. Seraphine Wilde's toxicology just finalized, Marquez said. She was dosed with lorazepam. Enough to fog her, not kill her. Then she didn't fall by accident, I whispered. Marquez nodded. Somebody wanted her quiet, not dead. Somebody miscalculated. Her eyes flicked to Alexei. And I don't think it was you. For the first time in days I breathed. But it lasted only seconds, because the bullpen outside erupted with shouts and a rookie officer burst in. Detective. You need to see this. Roman Capital just announced a leadership transition. Victor Roman's the new CEO. The room tilted. Alexei went very still, very dangerous. Victor had made his move. And now the wolves were running in daylight. The boardroom coup had been staged like theater. Victor at the podium, Amelia Voss beside him, cameras flashing. A statement crafted with surgical precision. Alexander Roman has voluntarily stepped aside to focus on his personal life following recent tragic events. Voluntarily. I watched the live feed in Marquez's office, the words stabbing deeper with each replay. Alexei stood behind me, arms crossed, a statue with fury for blood. You didn't resign, I said. No, he growled. But Victor doesn't need my consent if he controls the narrative. Marquez muted the screen. This isn't just a family spat. It's a hostile takeover built on your scandal. He'll use you as a shield until you're too riddled to stand, then step clean over your body. Unless we stop him, Alexei said. Lydia pinched the bridge of her nose. We have evidence implicating your father, not Victor. The SEC won't bite unless we tie him directly. I looked at the affidavit, at my mother's neat hand. Companions. Keep people grateful. A system didn't rot alone. It needed gardeners. Victor signed off somewhere, I said. Find the ledger. Find the signature. Marquez raised a brow. You offering to help me hunt your new husband's uncle? Yes, I said, surprising myself. Because if I don't, my father died for nothing and my sister's future is collateral damage. Alexei's hand brushed mine. Not possession. Alignment. Together, he said. Marquez exhaled. Then let's make the wolf bleed. We followed the money. Offshore shells, dummy charities, consulting invoices. Threads that looked meaningless until Lydia and Marquez pulled them tight. At the center, a consulting payment to Marina Hale, my mother. 3 months in 2018. $45,000. Roman capital shell. My chest hollowed. She swore she only wrote the affidavit. People swear many things, Lydia said carefully. Alexei studied the invoice. She may have been their informant. Or their pawn. Or both. The room swam. My mother, who left when I was 19, who signed a paper naming my father a liar, who told me not to trust Alexei. What if she hadn't just witnessed the game? What if she'd played? My phone buzzed. A text. Unknown number. Meet me on the rooftop of the Gresham. Midnight. Bring the affidavit. Come alone. Oh. My blood iced. Mom, I whispered. Alexei read it over my shoulder. His jaw clenched. It's a trap. She wouldn't? She already has, he cut in. Marquez grabbed her coat. We go together. She shows I want eyes on her. If she doesn't, then we know someone's using her name. I nodded. But inside something broke. Because even if it was her, even if she confessed, even if she begged forgiveness, what she'd left me with was still betrayal. The Gresham's rooftop was where fairy lights had been strung for a wedding rehearsal the week before, now stripped bare. Midnight air slapped cold. The city sprawled below like a million unblinking witnesses. I stepped out first, affidavit hidden inside my coat. Alexei lingered in the shadows, Marquez deeper still. The rooftop was quiet but not empty. A figure emerged from the dark. A woman in a trench coat, hair silvering at the temples, eyes that once matched mine. Mom, I breathed. Liv, her voice cracked. She held out her hands, palms bare. I had to see you. Why did you take their money? My words cut sharper than I intended. Her shoulders sagged. Because your father was going to burn everything and I thought if I could steer it, I could save us. You didn't save him. Tears glistened. I know. Movement at the edge of the roof. Not Alexei. Not Marquez. Another shadow, wrong shape, wrong speed. A man in a dark coat, moving closer. Alexei appeared from the side, intercepting. A struggle flared, fists, elbows, a gun glinting in the city light. Marquez shouted, gun drawn. Police. Drop it. The man shoved Alexei, stumbled toward the ledge. For a terrifying instant, history threatened to repeat itself. Alexei. I screamed. He caught the man's coat, wrenched the weapon free and slammed him to the ground. Marquez cuffed him in seconds, reading rights over his curses. My mother sank to her knees. They'll never let us go, Liv. Not until someone pays. Alexei wiped blood from his lip, eyes locked on mine. Then we decide who pays. Tonight. The affidavit burned hot in my coat pocket. My mother's signature. My father's ghost. Alexei's truth. The rooftop waited, hungry for another fall. And I realized, the next step I took would choose whose story survived. The cuffed man spat blood on the rooftop gravel and glared at Marquez like he wanted to chew through the steel. He had the compact build of a man hired to make problems disappear and a scar threading his jaw like a badly sewn truth. Name? Marquez said. Silence. Alexei leaned on the ledge, lips split, breathing even. Victor's? He asked. The man smirked, which was an answer disguised as insolence. Marquez hauled him upright. You're under arrest for aggravated assault and weapons possession. And if I tie you to Seraphine Wild, I'll add murder. She jerked her head. 2 uniforms ushered him to the door. The roof swallowed the echo of their steps. Wind tugged at my coat. My mother stayed kneeling, a penitent in a church she'd helped set on fire. I crouched. Tell me everything, I said. No embroidery. No strategy. She looked up, eyes raw. Victor paid through a shell in 18. Consulting my foot. He wanted me to convince your father to delay going to the press. Just a week, he said. Long enough to adjust the optics. I took the money because I thought buying time would stop him from killing himself with the truth. I thought I could steer it. Her mouth trembled. I failed. And the affidavit? I wrote it when I realized Victor had no intention of fixing anything. I hid the page because sometimes a truth survives longer as a rumor. She grimaced at her logic. Sarah pushed me to notarize it. I sent her the notary and told her not to read it live. A bitter breath. She liked an audience. I glanced at Alexei. Victor hired Muscle to raid the Gresham Dropbox tonight. To swallow whatever we fed it. And to scare you, Marquez said. Fear turns smart people into liars. Not tonight, I said. Marquez studied my mother. You'll come with me. We'll take a full statement on record. If you're lying, I'll know. If you're telling me Victor paid you to stall a whistleblower, I'll use it to pry him out of his glass chair. Mom nodded, exhausted. I'll tell you everything. Even the parts where I liked the flowers on the doorstep. Marquez holstered her gun, looked at me. I can't promise clean. I can promise fair. And I can promise to keep your sister out of a camera's mouth. Do it, I said. She squeezed my shoulder once, human, not cop, and disappeared with my mother into the stairwell, voices fading like a reprieve that might hold if we didn't breathe too loud. Silence scraped. Alexei pushed off the ledge, moved to me with a limp he pretended he didn't have. Your lip, I said, thumb ghosting near it. Your courage, he returned, reverent. I'm terrified. Good, he said softly. We'll do it right then. He looked past me to the scab skyline. Victor will counterattack before dawn. Then we get there first. How? We feed the truth to someone who can't be bought. His gaze slanted back. You trust Marquez that much? I trust that she wants the same headline I do, the one that doesn't devour my sister. He nodded once. Decision made. Then we go hand her the rest. Not all of it, I said. We keep enough to survive the part where the city decides we're the villains again. His mouth curved, not quite a smile. We're learning. We don't have to like our teachers. We left the rooftop with a plan that felt like running across ice you hoped had thickened overnight. By the time we reached Marquez's precinct, Victor had launched his salvo. A live interview on a business channel, gentle lighting polishing him into elder statesman. It is with great sorrow, he intoned, that I step in temporarily. My nephew is grieving, newly married, vulnerable to unscrupulous parties. Roman will weather this storm with integrity. Unscrupulous parties. The phrase slid across my skin like oil. Lydia texted a single line. He's about to name you. Marquez hustled us into an interview room and put her phone on the table, the feed playing. Victor leaned toward the anchor and, with theatrical reluctance, produced a grainy still. Me on the clinic sidewalk, hood up, reporters pressing in, a hand lifted to block a mic. Olivia Hale, he sighed. A woman whose father tragically chose the path of a saboteur. We wish her well. We also wish she'd refrain from exploiting my nephew's grief. Marquez killed the sound. He just accused you of gold digging and homicide without using either word. Let him, Alexei said through his teeth. Every time he speaks, he leaves fingerprints. Lydia barreled in, breath crisp with fury. We're suing. Defamation, tortious interference, pick a flavor. We won't win that in the court of public opinion, I said. Not fast enough. Marquez set the affidavit and the USB between us. If we do this, there's no unringing the bell. When I walk these down the chain, you can't later claim you never knew. Are we clear? Yes, I said. Yes, Alexei echoed. She slid the packet into a lockbox, snapped the latch. Then here's my deal. I keep your sister's name out of all filings. I pushed the DA for a protective order around the clinic. I move on Victor, not to arrest immediately but to freeze his movement. Travel flags. Financial sniffing. Meanwhile, you two stay boring for 24 hours. Define boring, Alexei said. No midnight rooftops, she deadpanned. No surprise press conferences. No boardroom knife fights. I mouthed sorry without sound. She almost smiled. Lydia's phone bleeped. She glanced and swore. Victor just filed an emergency motion to seize control of Roman's internal communications under stability protocol. If he gets it, he can scrub emails, pull server logs, make us chase ghosts. Then we get a warrant first, Marquez said, already texting a judge I suspected owed her a favor or three. If I can lock those servers, Victor can grandstand on TV while we shovel through his basement. She looked up. Go home. Sit still. If either of you so much as breathes into a microphone, you'll ruin what I'm building. We're good at ruining things, I said. Try a new skill, she snapped, and that was that. The penthouse felt like a museum of decisions I could no longer return. The city hissed against glass, sirens spooled like restless threads. I made tea I didn't drink and stood barefoot on stone floors that couldn't remember warmth. Alexei worked at the dining table, shoulders squared in a posture of endurance. Calls to allies that weren't quite friends, lists of directors who valued survival over loyalty, notes to employees that said we see you without promising what was impossible. Come here, he said at last. I did, because the alternative was pretending we weren't already standing inside a story that could break us. He pulled up a chair. I have to ask you a question I'd rather set on fire. Ask it. If this ends the way most storms end, in wreckage, and I lose the company, would you stay? My throat hurt. Rich or ruined, I didn't marry your balance sheet. His exhale was almost a laugh. You married my revenge. And kept choosing your heart, I said, surprised by my own certainty. He watched my mouth like it was saying things he didn't dare translate alone. Your sister. We'll have care, I said. We have the trust from the contract and we have my stubbornness. We'll be okay. He nodded. If Victor wins? He didn't hire a man to shove you around a roof because he was winning, I cut in. He did it because we have something that scares him. What? Each other, I said simply. And a cop who doesn't want to be bought. The clock ticked. The city pulled at us with the gravity of 11 million lives trying to make sense of themselves. I took his hand, turned his palm up, kissed the scar just below his thumb. For the record, I said, I would have fallen for you without the tux. For the record, he said, voice grainy, I would have married you without the contract. We slept for 3 hours because our bodies insisted. When I woke, dawn was an unkind gray and my phone vibrated with a message from a number labeled Do Not Answer. Against my better judgment, I did. A voice like old velvet, Olivia. Victor. You and your detective made a very loud move for such small people. Come measure us in person. He chuckled. Bring me my nephew and the original recordings. I'll make your life manageable. You dose Sarah, I said, testing the edge. TSK. I encouraged her not to make a scene. She lacked discipline. Discipline is a poor word for murder. Words are my business, he said lazily. Consider this one, orphan. That's what your sister becomes when I'm finished with you. Cold-drilled bone. Threaten me again, I whispered, and I'll read your ledger into a camera. Then we both bleed, he purred, and the line died. I was already moving. We're done sitting still. Alexei was up, alert before his eyes fully opened. Tell me. I did. He listened and something final said in his face, the way men look when they decide to stop pretending the boat isn't sinking and pick up a bucket anyway. Marquez first, he said. Then the board. And the cameras? When it helps us more than it feeds him. I grabbed my coat. He took my hand. The elevator hummed. We were almost to the lobby when the car juddered and stopped. Lights flickered, stabilized. The doors slid open onto a maintenance floor I didn't recognize. On the threshold stood Amelia Voss. Good, she said calmly. You picked up. Amelia stepped in, let the doors sigh closed, then killed the car with a key I was certain no one should have. The light washed her in that sterile elevator white that makes liars look honest and honest people look tired. I don't have long, she said. Victor is on his way to visit your servers with a court order he massaged out of a friendly judge. Marquez is already moving to lock them, Alexei said. Good, Amelia said. But he has a mirror set. A shadow server. He'll burn the light and preserve the dark and call it compliance. Why tell us? I asked. Her mouth tightened. Because I like numbers more than I like men who think they own them. Because Victor will bury me with you when he's done using me. She held out a slim black notebook, the kind bankers pretend they don't keep. Because I kept my own ledger. Alexei didn't reach for it. Strings? None you'd notice until you pull, she said wryly. The offshore route. The optics fund. The consulting payments to people like your mother. It's all in here. Enough to make the SEC salivate and Victor sweat. A beat. It also implicates your father beyond any hope of rebranding his villainy. Alexei stared at the notebook like it was both bomb and absolution. He's dead. His legacy isn't, Amelia said. She offered the ledger to me instead. You'll guard it better. I took it. It felt heavier than math. What do you want? I asked. Not to go to prison, she said, unblinking. And a deal for cooperating. I can testify that Victor authorized the shadow server and the shell disbursements. I can't give you Seraphine. But I can give you everything else. The elevator hummed around us like a heart we were inside by mistake. Why now? Alexei asked. Because you married a woman who refuses to be digested, she said, like it was a fact on a spreadsheet. Markets will forgive greed. They will not forgive incompetence. Victor is incompetent at hiding his greed. Her gaze flicked to me almost respectful. Do not waste the ledger on a press conference. Walk it into the SEC and the DA with Marquez at your shoulder. Make them compete to own the fall. Will you show up if they call you to the stand? I said. I have impeccable taste in suits, she said. I'd hate to waste them. A faint ding. Amelia turned the key, the car revived. One more thing, she said as the doors opened. Victor didn't dose Seraphine himself. He asked someone close to her to calm her. Someone who owes him favors and can walk into any party carrying a tray. A caterer, I said. A fixer, she corrected. I'll text Marquez a name. She stepped out, heels silent as decisions that cost too much, and vanished into a corridor like a ghost that did spreadsheets. The lobby air hit us like waking in a colder season. I clutched the ledger. Alexei's hand hovered at my back, a habit I'd learned to let comfort rather than correct. We go to Marquez, I said. And then, he said, we set the board on fire. We crossed the marble, the city's noise rising like tide. At the revolving doors he paused. Olivia. I turned. If we lose everything today, he said, voice quiet enough to live inside my chest, I want to lose it with you. We won't lose each other, I answered, and for once I didn't feel like I was trying to convince myself. We stepped into the morning that wanted a spectacle and handed it something else. Two people carrying a book of numbers that could crack a dynasty and a promise that wouldn't fit in any ledger. The SEC building smelled like coffee burned 2 hours ago and the cold metal of ambition. Marquez walked point, Lydia at her side, Alexei and I trailing with the ledger zipped in my bag. Every step felt like it echoed through history. We laid everything down, the ledger, the recordings, my mother's affidavit. The SEC lawyers leaned in, eyes hungry. The DA's rep scribbled notes like the paper would bleed if she stopped. This, Marquez said, isn't just corporate fraud. This is obstruction, bribery, witness tampering. It's a dynasty built on rot. The SEC chair flipped a page, expression tightening. If this ledger holds, Victor Roman's finished. I exhaled for the first time in hours. But then Lydia's phone buzzed. She read, swore and showed us the screen. Breaking. Anonymous source claims Olivia Hale withheld key evidence from NYPD investigation into Seraphine Wilde's death. My face stared back at me from the news feed, grainy, guilty, framed like a villain. Victor had moved again. By noon, media vans camped outside the penthouse. Protesters shouted from sidewalks. My name trended next to Murderous Bride. Marquez slammed the article onto her desk. He's feeding them piece by piece. Someone close to the investigation. Inside your house? Alexei asked. Her jaw clenched. Or inside mine. I pressed fists to my eyes. What now? Now, Lydia said grimly, we prepare for Victor's board meeting. He's called an emergency session tonight. He'll claim stability, demand Alexei's permanent removal, and unveil evidence that you, Olivia, are complicit. Evidence he manufactured, I said. Evidence that plays on camera, Lydia corrected. Alexei paced. He wants a spectacle. Then we give him one, I said, surprising myself with the steel in my voice. But with the truth this time. The boardroom was a stage again. Victor at the head, cameras discreet but present, directors shifting uneasily. Amelia sat stiff-backed, ledger already copied to SEC. Before we begin, Victor said smoothly, a tragedy deserves closure. He held up a vial, tiny, glinting. Toxicology confirms Seraphine Wilde was drugged with lorazepam. Who had access? The catering team. He gestured. A man in uniform entered. My stomach dropped. It was the same one Alexei had wrestled on the rooftop. This man, Victor said, confesses he was hired by Mrs. Olivia Roman. Gasp. Flashes. My throat closed. That's a lie, I forced out. The caterer smirked. She slipped me cash. Said the bride wanted peace at her wedding. Said Sarah needed to shut up. The room spun. Lydia shot up. Uncorroborated. Coerced. Amelia rose, voice sharp. Detective Marquez now. The doors opened. Marquez strode in, badge flashing, eyes blazing. Convenient confession, she said. Too convenient. She slapped down phone records. This man received calls from a number traced to Victor Roman's office the night before the wedding. Payment routed through his shell. And one more thing, she held up a photo. Security cam from the kitchen. The bride was never there. But Victor's fixer was. The room erupted. Victor's smile didn't crack, but his eyes did. It ended where it began, on a rooftop under city lights, the skyline sharp as glass. Victor tried to flee before the board could vote, before the SEC's freeze orders landed. Alexei and I followed, Marquez's team closing behind. "You can't bury me," Victor snarled. "I am Roman." "You were," Alexei said. Victor lunged. A struggle at the ledge, déjà vu in every gasp. For one breathless second I saw another body falling, another life ruined. "Alexei!" I screamed. He held fast. And this time I moved too. I grabbed Alexei's arm, bracing, anchoring him. Together we pulled Victor back, not to save him but to deliver him into Marquez's cuffs. "Alexander Mikhail Roman," Victor hissed as they dragged him away. "You think this city will forgive you?" Alexei looked at me. His hand found mine. "I don't care," he said. "I only need her to." The sirens swallowed the night. Weeks later, Emma walked out of the clinic on steadier legs, hoodie still pink, grin still lopsided. The papers called her the miracle sister. I called her mine. The SEC gutted Victor's empire. Roman capital survived, smaller, leaner, honest. Alexei refused the CEO seat. "Let the board choke on humility," he'd said. We opened a restaurant instead. Just one. Tables 12. The first night, Alexei washed dishes because the machine broke. He laughed when soap suds clung to his cuffs. "You married me for revenge," I teased, setting a plate in front of him. "And stayed for love," he said, tugging me close. Outside, the city still judged. But inside, we'd written our own epilogue. And this time the kiss wasn't staged.